you ask anyone that how was the 2020 year, he will describe it in 3 words. It was chaotic, it was unpredictable, and it was unprecedented. It initiated a roller coaster of events ranging from coronavirus till the normalization of ties between Israel and UAE. So we will formally start with number 1 event. As the 2020 year started on January 3, 2020, USA aerostrikes attacked Baghdad's international airport that killed Iran's top military leader, General Qasem Soleimani. And that killing started a series of events in Iran, and they give rise to the tension between USA and Iran. As General Qasem Soleimani was killed, Ayatollah Khomeini said that we will retaliate with severe revenge. And thousands of protests were initiated not only in Iran and Iraq, but in other countries like Syria and Lebanon. Why General Qasem Soleimani was important for Iran and for its allies? Because he created a wave of militias that surrounded their enemies in the Gulf. It was General Qasem Soleimani who created militias not only in Iran but also in Iraq, Syria, Lebanon, and Yemen. In this way, they surrounded their enemies and created their influence. After that event, the protesters in Iran laid a siege on US embassy, and Trump replied that General Qasem Soleimani must have been killed long before. It was the US election that changed the behavior between these two countries. Joe Biden, the president-elect, said that we will have good relation with Iran. We will also re-engage with Iran on joint comprehensive plan of action. And in this way, he said that if they verify the UN principles on their commitment to their JCPOA, they will not use the nuclear arsenal for their military purpose. Number 2 most important event: social distancing, pandemic, and lockdowns. A year defined by coronavirus. As the world was preparing to enter into a new decade, a mysterious virus broke in Wuhan city of China of 11 million people. Initially, it was treated as viral pneumonia, but as the World Health Organization declared it pandemic in March 2020, a series of countries imposed lockdowns and introduced SOPs. Till now, this virus has affected more than 75 million people and has killed more than 1.6 million people. Drawing comparisons to the Spanish flu of 1918 that infected more than 500 million people and killed between 17 million to 100 million people in 4 waves. This is the virus that has not only hit the countries at the core, but hit them socially, politically, economically, and psychologically. Till now, a number of vaccines have been developed. These include Pfizer, Sinopharm, and AstraZeneca. And immunization campaigns have been started in the countries like USA, Canada, and UK. Russia and China have made their own indigenous vaccine, and they have also started their immunization campaigns. Number 3 event that you should not miss before entering into 2021. It is the US-Taliban agreement. A series of talks were held in 2019, but these talks culminated in a formal agreement on February 29, 2020. The US government was represented by its chief negotiator Zalmay Khalilzad, and the Taliban's side was represented by its political chief Mullah Abdullah Ghani Baradar and they inked a deal in the Qatar's capital Doha that was witnessed by the US Secretary of State Mike Pompeo. This agreement was based on 3 points. Number 1, that US will withdraw from Afghanistan all of its troops within 14 months. Number 2 is the release of prisoners. Number 3, it was that Taliban will sever their ties with jihadist group and will help the US government to combat terrorism. However, after that, there was a delay over prisoners' release. Afghan government and Taliban started their formal talks in September 2020, and they started a series of talks. After that, there was the delay on the talks that which interpretation of Islam will be followed after the withdrawal of US troops. But earlier this month, in December 2020, there were preliminary talks between Taliban's Afghan government and USA that they will impose ceasefire, and the talks are put on hold till January 5, 2021. Number 4 is the Sino-Indian recent clash. The 2020 year also saw the clash between two nuclear-armed neighbors, China and India. It was a deadly clash that occurred in the Ladakh region of Kashmir, Indian-held Kashmir, and it resulted into 20 Indian soldiers' death. It was the deadliest clash in the relations between India and China, and after that clash, that there have been a number of overtures on the part of China and India to resolve the dispute. Till now, a number of meetings have been held, but there is no result in the sight. After that clash, India announced boycott on Chinese products. It also put a ban on the China's applications like TikTok, saying that it threatened the sovereignty and integrity of India. It must be noted that there are 23 border disputes between China and India, and the China and India share more than 3,600 kilometers of border that is all disputed. It's shown in this map. Number 5th most important event of 2020 is the Black Lives Matter. It was in May that George Floyd was killed at the hands of US police. And after that, a video was captured by a bystander in which George Floyd said that I can't breathe. And that last word of George Floyd became the rallying cry for social justice, not only in USA but all over the world. After that event, a series of protests were started in the USA as well as all over the world, demanding for police reform in the USA. During the protest, people also pulled down the Confederate monuments that were the symbol of slavery. And that monuments were not only pulled down in USA, but they were also pulled down in France, UK and New Zealand. Number 6th event is the UAE-Israel deal. Arguably, it was one of the most surprising political developments of this year, as the UAE and Israel inked their deal on August 13, 2020 under the auspices of USA. In this agreement, UAE and Israel will start their direct flights, they will have their communication, and they will also start their ambassador ties at the embassies level, as well as there will be security cooperation between two countries. After that deal, there were other Middle Eastern and African countries. After that deal, there was also the Sudan, Bahrain and Morocco that followed the suit and normalized their ties with Israel. Oman also welcomed these overtures, but it does not formally had agreement with Israel. After that deal, there were the strong reaction on the part of the Muslim Ummah. These include Turkey, Pakistan, Bangladesh, Afghanistan, and it includes also other countries, there were reaction on this deal because Iran said that it is the betrayal to Islam, and Palestinians strongly condemned this deal because there was no discussion on the two-state solution. There are also the news that Israel PM Netanyahu met with King Mohammed bin Salman in Saudi Arabia in November this year. But Kingdom's media has denied this accusation. The seventh most important event of 2020 is the Nagorno-Karabakh dispute between Armenia and Azerbaijan. September 2020 saw the clashes between these two countries over this disputed territory. It is controlled by the Armenia since the Soviet fall of 1990. But in 2016, there were the deadliest clashes between Armenia and Azerbaijan. But they did not culminate in the formal agreement. But it was in November that Russia offered its good office and negotiated the settlement between Armenia and Azerbaijan, in which Armenia has ceded its control of the territory to Azerbaijan. And Russia has also said that it will deploy 2,000 troops, peace troops, in order to ensure the formal agreement of this deal. Number 8th most important event of 2020 is the rise of Islamophobia. When the sketches of Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, were shown in a classroom in France by a teacher, and when that teacher was beheaded, President of France, Emmanuel Macron, said that he will not give up and he will start a series of reforms to deal with the radical Islam. Instead of dealing with the crisis, he said that Islam is in crisis. And after that, there were the reactions from the world leaders of Muslim Ummah like Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdogan and Mahathir Mohamad. Recep Tayyip Erdogan said that Mr. Emmanuel Macron go to a mental hospital for the mental checks. And there were the series of protests in the countries like Pakistan, Bangladesh, Afghanistan, Lebanon, and Gaza. There were the protests on the boycott of French products. And after that, in an interview, Mr. Emmanuel Macron said that it is shocking that the sketches must not be shown, but they must not be replied with the violence. Now, our ninth and last most important event of 2020. It was the US election. On November 3, 2020, US elected President-elect Joe Biden. After that election, Mr. Trump did not agree to the election results. He said that election votes must be recounted. But it was the December 15, 2020 that the Electoral College formally announced the result and saying that Mr. Joe Biden is the winner of the election. And Mr. Joe Biden also said that let's give each other a chance. And this election is termed as the election of lifetime and decade-defining consequences because of the Trump's irrational policies. Now, Mr. Joe Biden will face a number of challenges at home and abroad. These include political polarization in the USA, racial tensions, as well as COVID-19 challenge. Also, he has said that he will re-engage with key international institutions like World Trade Organization, WHO, UNESCO, Trans-Pacific Partnership, and he has also showed commitment to the Paris Climate Deal. He has also said that he will have soft stance on Iran and other Middle Eastern countries. In this way, he will usher in a new era in the stable foreign policy because the Democrats treat China not an enemy but their competitor. So Mr. Joe Biden has also said that he will have the good relation with Pakistan also. This was all about our 9 most important events of 2020. If you view that there are other most important events that are likely to come in the competitive exams, you must comment in the dialog box, and I will make video on them. Thank you. Allah Hafiz.